So welcome to another episode of the Go With John show. Today we have Cawley with us. Welcome.
Why, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yep. So Cawley, tell us a little, and it's C.Lee.
Correct.
Not Cawley. So you have to know how to say it. So tell us a little bit about what you do. Tell us, what's the name of your company?
So I have two businesses, Simplify You, which is residential professional organizing, and CawleyCawley.com, which is my education component.
So tell us a little bit about your organizational company.
So right now it's a bit of hiatus because I'm going in a new direction. So I have been a residential professional organizer in the DC metropolitan region for nearly 20 years. I am a certified professional organizer, which there are less than 400 of us worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been certified since 2008, and we have to have continuing education credits. And
so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I'm a real estate professional and I have to do CE all the time. So how do you become a certified professional organizer?
Right. So when I did it, you had to have 1,500 hours of transferring your skills to another person within 3 years' time.
Wow.
Which was quite a lot. And so when I had a banner summer in 2008, just before things changed, and I added up my hours, and I'm like, I think I have 1,517 hours.
Wow.
And so I studied. Took the month of October off, and I studied. And this was when we drove to a testing center. I went, and on Halloween 2008, I went and took my test, and it was a pass-fail test, and they were very kind and told me that I passed on the way out. So I had a stellar Halloween.
That's great.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful community. I think all professional organizers are very much collaborators. We all work together. We learn from each other. We're sharing products and services. So yeah, and especially in the DC region, I think we're a really tight-knit community.
So how many are here in the DC?
Oh,
area?
golly. In my chapter, the DC Metro chapter of the National Association, there are over 100 members. Probably 20 are business partners, and the rest are professional organizers. And those are just the people who actually invest in being part of a trade association. There are a lot of others. I mean, for good or bad, anybody can call themselves a professional organizer. Not anybody can call themselves a certified professional organizer, but there are a lot of people, we're a female-based industry that are kind of just like I was at the time, a stay-at-home mom. And I'm like, what do I want to do when I grow up? And because I was organized, I thought, well, let me try this. And this was back in 2003 when I would tell people at events, oh, I'm an organizer. They'd say, oh, for what trade association? They thought I was a labor organizer.
Right.
It was just at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I feel lucky that I was at the kind of the crest, the beginning of that before the waved crest. And I feel like in my entire career, I've been able to be just slightly ahead of the curve.
That's where you got to be.
Yeah.
So. Yep. So that's an important field. I think organization is everything.
I would agree with you. I think organization productivity is becoming much more recognized in our field as well, which is fantastic. I think that there's a trend now, and certainly in my business, I do this as well, for kind of just the Instagram visual. But I think that's okay because that's aspirational. And so I certainly I do the beautiful boxes, pretty labels, but it's got to be functional. So function trumps aesthetics every time, right?
Sure.
You've got to be able to maintain it.
So when you organize folks, are you, because when I hear about organization, I think from a business perspective, I need to, and Nick knows, I've got to be organized. And if my little world starts to get out of kilter, then everything falls apart for me. So there's the business aspect of organization, and then there's the home aspect of like having your towels and your kitchen organized and things. So where do you spend your energy when you're working with someone?
So I almost always start in the kitchen because the kitchen's the heart of the home. And what I do a lot of is I call it move-in perfection. So when we move people in the right way right away. And so we always start in the kitchen because, and it's interesting because we all have plates and forks and dishes, but everyone's unique and individual. So I'm asking them questions like, do you drink tea or coffee? Are you right or left-handed? How tall is the tallest person? All of these things.
Well, how tall is the shortest person?
Yeah, exactly. That's true. That too. But yeah, so it's interesting. In my life path, and you asked me about life lessons. I realized I'm on lucky number 8. I'm in my 8th career now. How many careers have you had, John?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so painting 1, water damage, marketing 3, real estate 4, home building 5, farmer 6. I can probably get to 8.
Yeah.
IT 7, podcaster 8. There we go.
There you go. I think I love this because I think that in every career I had, I learned something essential that that helped me lead me to the next one. And not all of them were logical progressions, right? But it's so I'm going to let you in on a secret.
Yes.
Okay. Be ready?
I'm ready.
I was Morgan Freeman's mistress.
No way.
Yes, I was his wardrobe mistress on Driving Miss Daisy off Broadway in the mid-'80s. Yeah,
wow.
I saw Morgan Freeman in his underwear twice a day if it was a matinee and an evening show. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so I actually got my degree in costume and set design.
Right.
In '85, I'm not ashamed to say, and moved to New York City. It was in upstate New York, in SUNY Purchase in Westchester, and moved to New York City. And that was one of my first jobs, and it was fantastic, working with true professionals off Broadway. And it's interesting because at the time I was also, because it was a short show, I was able to work in other ways, and so I was a personal assistant to some very wealthy people in New York. And the life lesson I learned from that was that money doesn't make you happy, right? I saw people that were unbelievably wealthy, Goldman Sachs partners, et cetera, and they were not happy people. And that was such a great thing to learn at a young age, that's certainly been a life lesson that I took with me. So those are 2 of the careers. Then I was also a costume designer, and I worked for the Joffrey Ballet and the Juilliard School.
Wow.
Yes. And I mean, at the age of 25, fantastic. This is funny. So I went to the Juilliard School and they're like, oh, show us your designs. And I'm like, here they are. And everything has to be custom dyed silk chiffon. And I was waiting for the laugh because who can afford custom dyed silk chiffon? I've been doing off Broadway stuff. And there was no laugh.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and quite honestly, I think I'm going to have to hire myself to do the custom dyeing. And again, they were like, okay. So I was able to have the Juilliard School create my designs. I custom dyed my own silk chiffon. You probably couldn't have had a better working situation. And yet on opening night, it was a custom commissioned piece, brand new, New York Times, opening night, the curtains open. And instead of feeling like, there's my creative genius at work, all I could think of was like, oh my gosh, when is this going to be over? I've seen it 1,000 times.
Right.
I want to go get a cocktail. And that was a real epiphany for me because I thought, wow, if here at this point in my career, which is quite advanced at the age of 25, that's what I'm thinking, then maybe this isn't what I should be doing.
Very clearly.
Right?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should do it.
Yep.
And that was another huge life lesson I learned. And the choreographer said, we've been invited to Seattle Ballet to another commissioned piece. She thought we were a team. And I was like, guess what? I'm not going. I've decided I'm not going to be a costume designer. She's like, how can you? I'm like, because it didn't make me happy. My only role models were, at the time on Broadway, women who were unmarried, whose best friends were their cats because they gave everything to their careers, or gay men. And I really wanted to have a husband and a family.
Right.
And I didn't see a role model for me in that world. So I stopped. So already I'm 28 and I've gotten through 3 of my careers.
That's
right?
incredible. Yeah.
So I met,
And that's called being true to yourself.
Yes,
you know?
exactly,
Yep.
exactly. And so I met my now husband. We'll be married 30 years in May.
Congratulations.
And he's fantastic. And he got a job offer in Boston, and so we moved to Boston. I didn't have any friends. I wasn't in the theater anymore. I didn't have any connections. So I just kind of had to reinvent myself. And so I started working in retail. But I was able to work my way up. And when we moved to New York, I worked at the Chanel boutique in Manhattan. I've never made so much money and done such little work in my life. Commission-based sales, fantastic.
Well, hopefully they just raised their commissions. I hear the price of a Chanel bag went from 5 to 8,000. Yes. Hopefully they're taking care of their sales reps in that too.
Yeah. But that was a great opportunity, because then when we moved to England, my husband went to Cambridge University, got his doctor's. And when we moved to England, I had this lovely ability to say, I worked at the Chanel boutique in Manhattan and got a fantastic job working in managing a very high-end exclusive clothing boutique there. And it was so interesting because this was the 90s in England, and customer service did not exist. People would come into the shop and they'd be like, oh, do you have that in a size 6? I was like, oh, I don't see it here. Just let me run down to my, inventory spot. Oh, no, don't go out of your way. I'm like, it is my job to serve and sell to you. I didn't do my job because I should know whether I have that in a size 6 available. So what I did is, and I think you mentioned earlier that you're organized, I just created like an inventory spreadsheet that was really easy for myself and my employees to manage. And I showed it to a couple of my other colleagues who are also managing other boutiques in this franchise. And they're like, oh, can I get a copy of that? And that was when you had to like go and Xerox it. This was before anybody had laptops. And lo and behold, I won like a gold customer service award for a simple spreadsheet, but it just helped us do our jobs better. And so
organizing is in your blood.
Exactly. So when we moved back to America in 2000, and I had the luxury of being a stay-at-home mom for a short time, and that was fantastic as well. One of the things I'm most proud of in my life is that I was one of the founding members of MONA, Mothers of North Arlington, which is, I think, 2,700 people strong now.
Wow.
And they have men and women. So, and people are like, well, Mothers of North Arlington, well, we had started as Moms Club International, but we got too many members and they needed us to split. And we're like, wait, we can just start our own mothers group. And it just so happened that we all lived in North Arlington, and one of my best friends' name is Mona. And somebody said, like, what about Mothers of North Arlington? We can call it Mona for short. I'm like, oh, yes, let's do that. I mean, we literally decided that in one of our living rooms during a informal board meeting. And to see that community grow. So that's another life lesson. I moved here knowing nobody.
Right.
I was desperate for friends. I had a 2-year-old. I just, when somebody was like, oh, there's a mom's group, I'm like, sign me up, let me go there. And because it's such a transient, I mean, this is what you do. You build homes. People move. It's so great that they are able to find this community. And we were just word of mouth, like on a playground. Oh, you should join MONA. And this was when I was the membership board member. Again, I'm like, what's your address? Let me mail you a membership form. You can mail it back with a check for $12. Like it was, now it's almost hard to even fathom.
Right.
But it's one of the things. I'm still active in MONA. I have a 23-year-old now. I joke that I will be the first to start GONA, Grandmothers of North Arlington, but not for a decade or so. Lydia, if you're listening. But I just think that sense of community, of finding others like you, is just been so powerful. So that was a fantastic thing. But the stay-at-home thing got a little bit old for me, I got to tell you. So when my daughter went to kindergarten, I was like, okay, well, what do I want to be? What can I do and still be a great wife and a great mom and a good friend? And organizing in 2003 was just becoming like people being aware of it. And so I thought, that's it. Everything that I'd done, I wasn't a brilliant costume designer. I could get things done on time and on budget. I wasn't an amazing salesperson, but I knew how much inventory I had and where I could find it. It was everything I had done that I was successful in was because I was organized. And I thought, well, I want to teach this to other people. When I started my business, they knew me as the toy tamer because, of course, everybody had toys. And I have a great system for helping people manage their toys.
Kids or adults?
Kids toys. Yeah.
Just saying.
I know,
it could
right?
Be, yeah.
So, but all to say, it's all just systems-based, logic-based. So it was nice that I was able to teach people these skills. And the best compliment is when they'd be like, okay, well, we got it figured out. We don't need you anymore. Like, then my work here is done. I did my job right. So yeah, it's been very satisfying to help so many families and individuals locally. But then I got I don't want to say bored, but I needed some more challenge. So I should have brought one to show you. In 2016, I pitched this hanger that we used in my retail stores all throughout Europe. And it's a very unique hanger that holds skirts or trousers from inside the waistband with gentle tension. And when we moved back to America, I literally went to Bed Bath & Beyond. I'm like, I need some of those stretchy hangers. I'm like, what are you talking about? So the next time I went, I brought one of mine with me. I'm like, I need one of these. They had never seen it. Wow. So it had always been in the back of my head. And HSN in 2016 I was accepted into their first American Dreams program because they wanted to bring unique products to the Home Shopping Network. And it was an amazing 3-day, Damon John came, symposium in DC. And so I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the importer. I called them holding hangers. You can go to YouTube and look up holding hangers and see me pitching them. And it was fantastic. In fact, on March 12th, 2020, I won a pitch contest and a $1,500 check to do with as I want, because a company felt so strongly that my idea was brilliant. Wow. And then we know that then the world fell apart. I kind of think March 13th, that Friday the 13th, was the day that everything turned upside down.
Yeah, we were Thursday, March 12th.
Yep.
Yeah, we have the date still written on our wall in our office.
That was the day I won my pitch contest, and the next day we had to go get my daughter from college. And all of a sudden, organizing, we legally couldn't go into people's homes, only if you were helping people move in. So there we sat. But everybody started clearing out their closets. And all of a sudden, I was selling hangers. They were in my basement. We'd package them up. We'd walk over to the UPS store. We'd literally throw the package in the store so not to go in. Right. And so I called my supplier. They're European, and my supplier in Sweden. And this was kind of end of April. And I thought to myself, okay, if this is the end of my industry, this is what I'm going to do. I'm so glad I've already started. I've had 2.5 years. I'm going to invest and get a container. I'm going to really go big or go home. I called Carl up. I'm like, Carl, I need a price for a container of hangers. And he said, Cawley, in his Swedish accent, he said, the factory's going out of business. Oh, no. And that was I was like, what? This was my alternative career. I've been working towards this for 3.5 years. I said, well, ask them if I can buy the molds, and then maybe I can have maybe them made in China or someplace else. I really liked the European engineering. The molds weren't available. And so Bob Coleman, who's a SCORE advisor here in Arlington, and this is my other lesson learned, find a mentor. Find someone who believes in you almost as much as you believe in yourself. And Bob Coleman believed in me, and he was coaching me throughout this entire process. And I called him up, and I said, Bob, I don't know what to do. I'm running out of inventory. And he said, he's like, tell me the problems. And I was like, my factory's closing. They won't sell me the molds. Global pandemic. Oh, and they won't let me trademark the name Holding Hanger either. And he said to me, you know what, Cawley? He's like, if you had just one of those problems, you're clever. You could overcome that. But he said, you're telling me these 4 things. And I was like, oh, you're right. I need to shut down that business. And it wasn't until he echoed back to me that I realized how crazy it would be to pursue that. And thank goodness, because now, what is it? If a container used to cost $2,000, it costs $20,000. It wouldn't be sustainable.
Sure.
Thank gosh I got out of it before I had invested in a container fill. And so that was the lesson of having a trusted mentor to coach me. So here I am, and it's, May 2020, and there's no organizing, and there's no hangers, and I was like, what am I going to do? I'm too young to retire. I've got a lot to offer. And it had always frustrated me that I could only help people that I could drive to or fly to. I had some of my clients send me to their holiday homes in Maine or Florida or wherever, but I was limited by my time, right? It was in dollars for hours. And of course, I'm one of the highest priced organizers in the DC metropolitan region, and still people know that they've gotten great value for their money. But I sat and I thought, how could I teach this on a bigger scale? Because that's how I know I've been successful. And people are like, you set us up great. Everything's labeled. We got this. We don't need you anymore. I'm like, great. I taught you how to do it. So because of silver linings of COVID, all of a sudden we're all on Zoom. We're all understanding that we can, I got all of my education hours. I learned so much because I was stuck at home with my computer. I thought, maybe I could do that. So that's my 8th career. I've reinvented myself yet again, and now I am organizing Expert and Educator, and I'm launching online courses.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's a separate website?
Yes, that's the Cawley.com.
Gotcha.
So it's I've launched my first course to over 70 people. It's happening right now. It's been fantastic.
Wonderful.
I've got people from California to literally England.
Wow.
And it's super satisfying. I have a copyrighted method of paper management, and everybody's got, they said we were going to be a paper-free society.
Right.
They lied.
They did lie.
They lied. And so I'm able to help people. My goal is to eventually help 1 million people worldwide.
Wow, that's a pretty aggressive goal.
I mean, I'm going to live for at least another 40 years, so why not? So I think that it's exciting. So I've turned the challenges that I've faced in my career, and I could just stay organizing. I know you're in the home business. Home business is booming right now. Everybody's stuck at home. They're desperate to get organized. But I'd rather refer that business out to my colleagues who are starting their businesses and really go in 100% on this new endeavor. So it's an exciting time, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So we're gonna take a quick. That was a wonderful story. No, it was really great. I enjoyed hearing all that. We're gonna take a quick break.
Great.
And we will be back with more from Cawley.
Thank you.
A lot of folks think that building a custom home is a complicated and arduous process. It doesn't have to be. At Stanley Martin Custom Homes, we have the process down to a science. We will bring you through the buying, design, and building phase one step at a time. Head on over to webuildonyourlot.com and check us out. Reach out to us if you want to get started on the path to your very own Stanley Martin Custom Home. So welcome back. We're still chatting with Cawley Cawley. So thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.
I'm enjoying hearing your stories. They're great. So tell us, what tips would you give young adults who are considering your career path?
Oh, I think that this is fantastic. And I'm a mentor to a lot of new organizers. Mm-hmm. And it's, again, something that I really enjoy doing. I'm really proud of, because what I tell them all is it doesn't matter if you're an organizer, a baker, or a candlestick maker. You're a business owner. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you need to approach this from a business perspective. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's part of the problem in this kind of gig economy. Anybody can be a organizer. I'm kind of organized. I'll organize your closet. Mm-hmm. And they price themselves at rates that are less than, a cleaner. I'm like, this is a skill. This is something that people will pay for, that they should be paying for. Mm-hmm. But you have to approach this as a business. You need to, either you have to establish a business entity, you need to get a business license, you need to separate your personal and business finances from the very beginning. Right. You need to know your metrics, know your numbers, know your profit percentage, all of these things. And people look at me and they're like, I'm like, then maybe you're not cut out.
Right.
You need to approach it as a business for it to be successful. My business was extraordinarily successful. Mm-hmm. I was in, well over six figures. Right. For the last 5 years. I had an astounding first quarter in 2020, right, and then kind of brought things back. Even in that year, I did over $100,000 because I know my value, I know my worth, and I charge it. Mm-hmm. And I also come at it from a service perspective. So not only you're a business person, mm-hmm, you need to delight, astound, you need to, organizing is not that complicated. Right. Anybody can do it, right? But you need to, one of the things I offer is labels for life. Right. And I'm just like, because my label maker is quite unique, and it makes slightly different size labels because mm-hmm, it's one that I purchased in 2003. I literally have to get them on eBay now. Wow. Because I can't use a different label maker. So I'm like, just send me a picture. I'll make you labels easy enough to put in the mail. Mm-hmm. Because, you need to, I think you do this in your business, you need to go above and beyond, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. I think Walt Disney, the one, is like, well, how can we plus it? What extra level can you give? Mm-hmm. And so I'm, forever, even now, my clients are like, oh, what would you recommend for this narrow closet door? Mm-hmm. I'm like, I have the solution for you. Here's the link. Mm-hmm. Because you're not the only one with a narrow closet door. I've already figured this out, and I'm mm-hmm, happy to share my knowledge. So to circle back, I think that this is a fantastic business to get into. And there's some young organizers. I know a couple of people right out of college who have started organizing businesses, but they realize they're starting a business, so they should be taking business classes. Mm-hmm. Business classes and organizing classes, productivity classes should all be taught as basic things. Right. Because look at us. We've both had 8 careers. Mm-hmm. Nobody does the sign up for General Electric and work their way up. That's what our parents did. It's right. I grew up in Endicott, New York, home of IBM. Both my mom and dad were IBM. From the day they started. My father got out of World War II, went to IBM, retired 40 years later. Mm-hmm. Right. Same with mm-hmm, my mom. But that's unheard of for us. Right. Unheard of for certainly the younger generation. So find a mentor. That's the lesson I've learned all the mm-hmm, way through. Find a mentor. I'm happy to be a mentor to the people coming up mm-hmm, and giving them really honest advice. SCORE is a great resource, but treat it like a business and know your numbers and set yourself goals. You have to set yourself goals. It's just not kind of like, well, if the phone rings, I'll go work. How are you going to make that happen?
Right.
You know, I've been lucky. I have never had to advertise in my entire career.
That's wonderful.
Because word of mouth, Yelp, now it's Yelp reviews. People hear about me on Nextdoor. Women run this town. I've never been running in my life, but somebody must have said something really nice about me on their listserv once, because I hear from those lovely ladies all the time.
Wow, that's great.
It's the power of a good word of mouth. But you can't just wait for the phone to ring. So I think in everything, and you know this as well, you have to be a marketer. I mean, now I'm a course creator. I hope to teach my organizing method to people worldwide, but I have to market to them for them to even hear about it. How are they going to find out about it? Right,
exactly, yeah.
So taking marketing courses is another, you know, but the young people, they're so good with the social media. My daughter was home and she's like, this is how you do Instagram, Mom. I'm still not quite sure about it, but luckily I also have a fantastic virtual assistant that helps me with that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So what kind of crazy things have you run into when you've been out there organizing? You have got to have a story or two.
So, you know, I tell people that I don't care as long as it's not illegal drugs or loaded weapons. You can have whatever you want. But I did have a client, and, you know, we usually start in the kitchen, but she's like, I need a good night's sleep. I am not sleeping. Celie, I'm just like insomnia, up all night. I'm like, okay, well, bedroom's important too. So we get into her bedroom. And there's a couple of things that are just, you know, oh, they had too many screens and, you know, it was cluttered and a mess. And so, and I'm not a feng shui person, but I was kind of like, well, what do you have under your bed? What's all this? She's like, oh, it's my husband's samurai sword collection. I'm like, that could be why you're not sleeping very deeply, because you're literally sleeping over blades. And they had a big linen closet full of linens. And the reason why the swords were on the bed, they were too long to go anyplace else. I'm like, let's just switch this. Let's put your, you know, off-season linens, soft and fluffy, under your bed. Let's put the samurai swords in that linen closet with maybe a lock. Yeah. And let's just see. And of course, we got rid of the screens and we tidied up. And to this day, she's like, you fixed me. She's like, I sleep like a baby.
So were the swords like in between the mattresses?
They were just under the bed, but you could like see them under the bed. It was so it's crazy things like that. I mean,
That is crazy.
Yeah, you know, I've seen all kinds of things, costumes and collections. People are very interesting, and I also feel privileged and lucky that they have been vulnerable enough to invite me into their homes to say, I can't manage this. And I always say to them, you know, it's not you. Your parents couldn't have taught you how to manage this. Your parents didn't have the ability to buy this much. There weren't so many goods. There were, you know, it used to be you get mail and it would be a postcard from your grandmother, a bill, and a newspaper. Now we're inundated.
It's crazy. It is. Yeah.
So I say to people, don't feel that you're lacking. You just were never taught because you couldn't have been taught. And, you know, and we're dealing with so many other things, but the samurai swords jump out as one of those things because the other things I can't really talk about.
Sure. No, I can appreciate that. Yeah, no, that's a good one. So obviously you're an organizer and you have experience organizing homes, and I build homes with Stanley Martin. And, you know, there's a lot of things that you have to think about when you're trying to organize a floor plan around people, how people live. So, you know, for the folks that are listening that are building a new home, which our buyers can either customize a home or they can take one of our homes already designed and just build it. What kind of tips do you have for folks that are designing a new home? Or you can also add to this, and or what kind of tips do you have for getting moved into your home? Because you said, what did you say earlier? Move-in perfection?
Yeah, move-in perfection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great question. So a couple of things trends that I'm seeing is that no matter what, homes aren't built with enough storage space. And one of the things I'm trying to design in, because I do some consulting on new home builds or renovations, is almost creating a boxing room, a place where close to wherever the Amazon boxes are coming in. And again, this is something 10 years ago, you'd get an occasional package in the mail. Now, I don't know about you, but I never go into a real store. Even now I can.
Right.
Why would I when
Right.
it's so much easier just to order something?
It is. You're right. Yeah. Because half the time they don't have what you want when you get in there.
And our
Yeah.
time is so valuable. You know,
Yes.
I don't know what you charge, what your hourly rate is, but it's much cheaper for me to order something. So, and I think that that's true with so many people worldwide. So it's creating some type of large closet that these boxes can go into next to an entryway.
Yep.
There's sometimes a trend with these new open plan floor builds that there's no coat closet or anything.
Right, right. No, you're right. That's
And
right.
then
Yeah.
also just putting, and I'm sure you do this, plugs in every closet, lights in every closet. When I go into a new home and I open a closet and a light doesn't automatically come on, I'm appalled.
Right.
And if there's not a plug in there that I can put a dustbuster, a Roomba, a Dyson, again, I'm appalled. It takes so little to add that, you know. So those are some things that I'm telling people, if you can customize, you're never going to be wishing you had. No one ever wishes, they're like, oh, I have way too much storage space.
Right.
Everybody's like, I need more storage space.
Right.
So if that can be built in at the beginning, that's great. I love considering truly adjustable shelving in every space, whether it's a kitchen, a pantry, a closet, a linen closet. So often I see builders will put 17 inches from the shelf heights. I'm like, there's nothing in a pantry that's 17 inches except for maybe a KitchenAid mixer, which people are going to have on their counter because they're like a showpiece.
Right.
So think about, you know, the largest cereal box is only 13 inches. So if the heights are adjustable, then we can fit a lot more in. So it's things like that I always encourage my clients to question and ask about. And if it, you know, they're like, well, that's a little upgrade. I'm like, that's an upgrade that's going to be worth it.
They're all worth it.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and it's, you know, I've built many homes for myself over the years, and all the little things that you spend money on, you really appreciate it when you're living in the home.
You do, and not only that, you'll get your investment back when you sell eventually. So I do think sometimes it's penny wise and pound foolish. I had a client who moved into the Watergate $1 million home. They spent $10,000 on us getting them moved in. She said that was 1% of the cost of our home.
Right.
But now we can enjoy our home. She
Right.
said it was absolutely worth every penny. And and so I think that people need to have a much bigger picture, instead of being penny wise, pound foolish type of idea. But no, I think with new home builds, more storage, mudrooms, and looking at angles. So I had a client, beautiful home. From their dining room table, because it was an open plan, you could see all the way through to the mudroom. I'm like, when I'm doing fine dining, when you do not want to, it was just they didn't do the floor plan right. They
Right.
could have, and you don't want a door every time you're going in and out of the mudroom.
Right.
So it was just like, oh, if only somebody had stopped to think about sight lines. And things like that. Sometimes those things, I'm like, oh, that could have been fixed, but now it can't because that house has been built and those walls aren't moving. So, just those are some of the things I want people to be aware of.
Right. So how do you approach? So when somebody moves into a new home, how do you approach move-in perfection?
Yeah. So I look at the plans because everything I was a set designer. I understand a floor plan. Not every organizer does, but I do. I understand, you're going to open your kitchen drawer and it's going to measure 19 3/4 inches because that's the standard measurement. So I understand those concepts. So I can apply those ideas to your kitchen. So I can look at your kitchen plan and say, okay, that's 30-inch wide. We'll be able to fit 3 sets of plates, or whatever the case might be. It's just like shoes. Shoes take up 9 inches. So don't give me a 30-inch shelf for shoes because that's only going to be 2.5 pair of shoes. Right? Make it 36. Like, just, it's basic math. I always say.
It depends on what size the shoe is.
I know,
doesn't it?
right. It does. Unless you've got really tiny feet.
Right.
And again, if
how long's the shelf?
A 14-inch. It's 14-inch depth. But you want to make it at least in 9 to 10-inch increments. Right. And adjustable because shoe heights vary.
Yes. For the ladies.
For the men as well. Men, there's high top sneakers.
Well, that's true.
There's boots, all kinds. If it's adjustable, it doesn't matter who lives there. Brand new build in Vienna, beautiful clients, multi-million-dollar home. In the primary female closet, there was no long hanging. It's as if she did not own a dress. And even if she didn't own a dress, we all have these long, fashionable cardigans.
Right.
So she had to, at great expense, rip out what the builder had put in, have it all patched up, and had a beautiful install done, which we could customize. And she used my advice, and it's gorgeous. But if only the builder had just thought about it, or just said, okay, let me give you a credit, you go ahead and put a beautiful closet in. So spending that little bit extra, and I know, when you've just moved in, it's like everything costs $1 million, but you have to be able to function. Where could she have put her dresses? She's like, they literally were across the hallway in her daughter's closet. So
that's no good.
Yeah, exactly. That's not going to help her get dressed in the morning.
Yeah. I think, one of the challenges with building a new home is everybody runs out of money. Every buyer has a dream and every buyer has a budget, and the dream is always bigger than the budget.
Yes.
And I think things like decks and closet organizers and garage, epoxy on the garage floor and nice organizational things in the garage, they cost the same if you do it with the builder when you're building or if you do it after. And I think a lot of people just run out of money and they intend to come back to it. But that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of the builders don't put them in, because it's going to drive the price higher, and it is pretty personal, I think, too.
I agree.
On the closet organizers, but they are nice. I do appreciate when my closet is organized and you've got drawers in there. And
that you can just go into, because especially in the beautiful homes you're building, a closet is going to measure at least 12 by 12. That's the size of a standard bedroom in my house.
Yeah.
But But if it's a closet that big, you're going to want to be able to walk in there and fully get dressed. You don't want to have to walk into another room to get your underwear or socks. You want some drawers in there, and so I think. Well, and this is where I always tell people, I'm like, put your money where you spend your time, right? So you spend your time in your kitchen. We all have to get dressed in the morning, even if it's just putting on sweats to jump on a Zoom call, right? So you don't spend time in your garage, right? You don't have to spend time in your storage space in the basement.
Right.
So those can come afterward. But for me, it's always kitchens, bathrooms, closets, pretty much in that order.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, Cawley, anything else you want to add? This has been a great conversation.
Oh my gosh,
I've learned a lot.
This has been delightful. I think that if anybody's interested, they can go to cawley.com. My course is called The Paper Cleanse, and it's how we take people from clutter and chaos to clarity and calm. I teach them how to get rid of the pesky piles and the frustrating files for a lifetime of paper organization. And it's no scanning needed. So if they're kind of a digital dinosaur like I am, I'm not going to say, scan it all, because that's not realistic. So we're having a lot of fun, and I'll be opening up the course probably again later this year.
Fantastic. Well, Cawley, thank you so much for coming in. Greatly enjoyed chatting with you today.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate it.
Take care.